Hello, everyone. My name is Shanae Jones, and this is KNKY, which stands for Know the New Kinky You. I am a certified sex coach, which means that I have been trained to help people with their sexual issues, concerns, and goals. So, part of what we're talking about today is this is part two of a four-part series where we're talking about emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really a concept that is intended to help people have better relationships and not just deal with the fact that it's all about me, because it's not all about me. When you're in a relationship, there are others to consider. Your primary partner, perhaps your primary partners, depending on the dynamics of your relationship. But when you're in the moment, a lot of times you really just consider yourself. And that is not necessarily a way to help promote healthy relationships and healthy communication. So, in part one, we went through the whole series of what EQ is, but for the off chance that this is the first video that you get to watch, we'll give a brief overview. So, emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage behaviors and relationships. So basically, there are four parts to emotional intelligence, EQ. So when you are dealing with your competencies, you have two personal competencies and you have two social competencies. These competencies are what drive your ability to have effective emotional intelligence. So the personal competencies are your ability to stay aware of your emotions and manage your behavior and tendencies. So self-awareness and self-management. This part, we're going to talk about self-management because part one was self-awareness. The social competencies are your ability to understand other people's moods, behaviors, and motives in order to help improve the quality of your relationship. And that's social awareness and relationship management. Those will be coming up soon. So, self-awareness is the first foundational skill that you have to work on in order to have effective emotional intelligence. And you can go back to part one to look at the details for those, for self-awareness. But just in general, what it is your ability to accurately perceive your own emotions in the moment and understand those tendencies across situations. So when we're talking about emotions, when we're happy and in love and laughing and joking, those aren't typically things that we really have to manage to our responses and really have a lot of concern over those. It's really the anger, the sadness, the fear, and the shame, those feelings that kind of get triggered that we have to say, okay, how do I respond? And how do I make sure that my response to the situation doesn't make this situation worse? That's really the question that you want to keep in mind anytime that you are going through something and somebody says something or does something. This is really self-awareness, is understanding what it is that has happened to make you feel this particular way. But self-management, once you've done that, once you learn to gain those skills to become self-aware, is self-management, which is the next key. So self-management is what happens when you act or don't act. So, this is related to self-awareness because you are the person that is in control. These are your feelings. This is how you are going to choose to respond. Now, again, if you go back to part one, our feelings emerge first and they come through our brainstem and they go through our limbic system, and this is where we process our emotions. And it's not until those feelings reach our frontal cortex where we're like, damn, I have to now think about how it is that I feel, and then go the next step as to why it is I feel the way I feel. So your awareness of your emotions and staying flexible and be able to direct your behavior in a positive way is what allows us to manage ourselves, manage our emotional responses to situations. So again, that anger, we can have a negative response that says, I'm going to yell, I'm going to curse, I'm going to hit. That physical, especially if it's physical, lashing out. The sadness, you can become, you can cry or feel like you're isolated or depressed. If you're fearful, you can, fail to remove yourself potentially from a dangerous situation. Or again, you can physically lash out because of fear. Shame, you can have a negative response and become depressed, or again isolate yourself, or even deny your feelings. That's never a good choice. So the difference is figuring out why you feel a certain way, what caused you to feel that certain way, because again, that cause might not be the most apparent or obvious thing. It might be that, let's talk about some examples. If you're feeling like your boss, let's do a non-sex example so we can try to relate to it in general, because it happens all the time. If your boss gives you an unreasonable deadline, or you feel like he's treating you unfairly or she's treating you unfairly, you can become anxious and stressed, or you could cuss them out and end up in human resources, possibly. Or you could quit your job in a moment of frustration, and then you're worried about how to pay the bills. Although they pissed you off right then, the emotional response and how you deal with that emotional response can have some very severe effects. So in a personal relationship setting, if your partner, if you feel like their partner doesn't pay enough attention to your sexual needs or wants, you could just give up and say, fuck it, I'm not going to have sex anymore, I'm done trying. Or you could have sex but not enjoy it, not really get anything out of it. Or you could have an affair and, feeling like you need to gratify your needs and desires outside of your relationship. And those still are not things to do. There are better ways to handle these situations. So some of the keys to self-management is to, again, practice your self-awareness. Understand your feelings about the situation, where they come from, what your triggers are, really practicing that self-awareness. You have to go back to part one to pay attention to that piece. Acknowledge the emotions in the moment. You have to understand, yes, I feel this way, but take a pause for the cause. Do not respond. Before you just leap to say something out of your mouth, just stop. Stop. Even if it means walking away, if you have to walk away. Do not have an immediate response to your feelings. Also, it's about understanding that there are at least two sides to every story. Your feelings are not the only ones that need to be managed and processed. Your person that you are in this relationship with also has feelings. They also have things that are going on. And if we take the opportunity to put our momentary needs on hold to understand what the larger goal is and to understand what the larger focus is, we'll be in a much better situation to kind of take ourselves out of it, take ourselves out of that emotional state and say, you know what, hey, there's something else that we need to do. I need to respond differently. It's all about your responding differently so that then you can, after you've worked on yourself, you can work on understanding your partner and understanding those that are around you. Because again, in relationships, we are not in this alone. So, and you shouldn't feel that you're in this alone. So I am Shanae Jones. This is KNKY. Look out for parts 3 and 4 of the emotional intelligence conversation, especially as it relates to your sex life, your relationships, and follow me on all social media platforms at DOYOUKNKY, including my website. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to DM me. I do free consultations. Have a good evening.